Hello everyone, I am back to that wonderful bloom brush, which by the way, there will be one of these in, I believe it's my 5th or 6th subscription box. So if you did get in on those, I can't wait to share that with you. Mine will be hot pink. Okay, so I made a couple of these cards and wanted to make a couple more because I fell in love with them and I thought I want to paint this for myself. So let's do that. You could also do this, by the way, with an angle brush, which I feel like we're all really loving that angle brush right now. So I'm just going to start a little over to my left, and I'm going to take the point of that brush and point, drag, point, drag. Let's do it again. Point, drag, point, drag. So they're almost like 4-leaf clovers, aren't they? Point, drag, get a little bit. My left one's always a little bit harder. Point, drag. And one more right here. Point, drag, point, drag. And there you go. So that's my first one. Let's do another one right here. And I'm just going to dip into that purple a bit here. Point, drag, point, drag. And this one I'm just going to make kind of peeking out. Point, drag, like that. Kind of fun. Maybe another one up here. Point, pull, point, pull, point, pull. Something like that. And one more. Point, pull, point, pull. Those left-handed ones are always a bit tough for me. So I'm just going to rinse my brush, and so I'm going to go back to this pinkish color, which is actually the rose red in here, in case you're wondering what I'm using. But don't you love how they bleed like that? Ooh, I love that. A little bit right there. And then let's do one right here. Let's see. Point, pull, point, pull, point, pull, point, pull. There we go. Love getting all the different ones. And then I'm going to get a really light value. And let's just do one right here. Point, pull, point, pull. So we kind of have that light value there. Point, pull, point, pull. Really press into the brush. Hopefully I'm not making you dizzy there. Point, pull, point, pull. And then here I might just use that beautiful little tip and tuck that behind. And then I think at this point I'll go into some of that blue. We love our turkey blue. I think that, of course, I'm using my Mylang palette. I think this color would be really pretty too. And I'm not sure what I'm going to paint yet for the subscription box, but FYI, I do have 2 of the bloom brushes in there, a large one and a small one, and they'll have the hot pink candle and be a little bit different than this one. Point, pull, point, pull, point, pull, point, pull. Let's even double dip that brush. I'm going to make a full one here. Point, pull, point, pull, point, pull and drag, point, pull and drag, because it is kind of like a drag. Let's see. Always a little challenged going the opposite way. That's why I keep turning my paper. Point, pull, point, pull, then do another one here. Point, pull, point, pull. Look how pretty. Isn't that a pretty color combination? And then I think I'll even use, how about if we even use maybe one of these pink metallics in here and do one up here. Point, pull. Ooh, look at that. So pretty, right? Point, pull, just something different. maybe add in another one down here. I'm just going to do a few of those because this color doesn't show up real strong. So maybe tuck one in here, point, pull, point, pull, point, pull, just like that. Just kind of a nice little metallic surprise. Rinse my brush, and I'm going to go into this one right here because I love that color. Let's get it lightened up just a bit. It can be pretty intense. I believe that's the deep violet. And watch this. Point, pull, point, pull. Look at that. Point, pull. Now, because that is so vibrant, I'm going to have to add that color kind of to create some harmony. Otherwise, if I just leave it up here, it's going to kind of throw the weight off of this painting. So I want to add that color in maybe down here as well. So let's do that. Point, pull. And I'm just glazing right over what was there. Point, pull, just like that. Isn't that fun? So now my eye doesn't just stop right there. Let's go into the red violet, which I love that color as well. You know me and my violets. I love them all. Oop, just wiped it off. So I'm doing about 50-50 here. And let's see, let's put one right over here. Point, pull, point, pull, point, pull, point, pull. It's really more of a drag than a pull, but I'm kind of saying pull because I am pulling it, but I'm also pushing down, and I have the longest corner, the longest edge is facing upwards, and then the shortest edge is down. And I'm putting pressure, pressing into the belly of the brush and opening it up. I feel like I want a little bit of that purple color because it's right up here, right here. Now let's put one here. Let's see, which purple? I think that was this one. Okay, and point, press, maybe go a little bit that way and tuck it behind. So I just have a little bit out there. And then I'll go into that pink because I'm trying to create this harmony. So point, press, point, press, point. They look like little hearts too, don't they? Which gives me a whole nother idea. Point, press, point, press, point, press, and there you go. Look how fun. Let's see, now can you guess which color I might want to use there? Maybe that light blue. Let's do a full one. Point, press, point, press. I'm going to grab a little bit more of that blue. Point, press, point, press, point, press, and then I'll just tuck it behind that one there. So that's what's great. This brush has such a beautiful little point, and mine will too. Point, press, point, press. There are just a few more sets available. So if you haven't gotten your subscription box, don't fret, you can still go in there and get that. Then I'm going to do another fun thing that actually I wanted to save and do later, but I'm going to show you right now. So I've got some blue on my brush. This is that light sky blue. Let's add just a little water there. And then I'm going to take the tip of my brush and dip it in that purple. So yes, you can double dip these guys. So fun. And let's put one right here. Point, press, and look at that. Point, press, you know me. I love to play with the double dipping. So fun. Let's put another one of those. How about over here? So we've got one here. We'll pull our eye over there. So I go into the light blue, then double dip into, just with the tip, that purple, and we're going to put one right here. Now here I am at that weird angle. Point, drag, point, drag, point, drag, point, drag, and I just cover right over what's there, but I will use the tip to color in behind there, so it kind of looks like it's tucked in. Now I'm going to put a pink one over here because I feel like we need to add some pink here, and you can do this, you know, really intuitively. So let's do one here, point, press, point, press, there we go, point, press, keep going, point, press. Also, I could say point, press, or point, drag, point, press, and drag, point, press, and drag, just like that. So we're sharing a lot of these colors all around. Now, how about, what do you think? Let's put maybe a blue one kind of running off the page here. So I'm going to grab some of that light blue and point, press. I love running my flowers off the page. I always thought that was such a cool look. Point, press, and there you go. It's kind of overlapping, which I love too. And I think I'll put one right here, a light blue, because I want to keep the colors moving my eye around. So I don't want all the same colors kind of bunched together. So let's do one here. Point, press, point, press, point, press, point, press, and drag. And here's another point, press, point, press. And once you get this, like, you're gonna get it. And then you're gonna be like, oh my gosh, was I not playing with this more? So let's put a pink one over here. So just rinse my brush and tap it off a bit. Grab some of that pink and point, press, point, press, point, press, point, press. So I'm turning my brush as well. Point, press, like that. Point, press, and I'm pretty much glazing over other layers that are there, and I think that's really pretty. Then we'll go in and just maybe create a little bit of dark dots or even yellow dots in the middle. Let's see, let's go with a purpley color here. So rinsing my brush, pick up some of that purple, and let's go here. Point, press, point, press, point, press, point, press. And keeping these colors moving around your painting really creates that harmony. You want to be very aware of that. And lights and darks, maybe we do a light purple here. So I just got rid of, rinsed my brush a bit, and it created this very light value. How about if we do another pink here? Point, press, press and drag. I love the little split it creates there too. I think that's pretty cool. Add just a bit more there. There we go. So we've almost got this whole page filled up. What do you think? Maybe let's see, we've got a purple there. So I'm gonna say this value of the purple over here, which had a little blue in it. There we go. So point press, yeah, point press, point press. That looks like a hydrangea, doesn't it? Point press, love it. Got that hydrangea feel. Point press, and there we go. So gosh, we're almost done. Let's put a dark blue flower here. Point press, pick up a little bit more of that. So I mixed the turkey blue in with some of that purple. That's how I got that dark blue color. Point press, again, running off the page a bit, which I like. Point press, and I'm not getting too picky with these. Point press, there we go. Maybe a pink one down here. Just about done. Point press. You guys are going to be so tired of hearing me say point press, aren't you? And then I feel like we need a darker value here. So let's grab that one, point press, and bring that over there. Oop. They look like little hearts, don't they? Which I did do one painting and I did the little hearts and that was really fun. Just dragging it in those circles. Okay, how about if we do just a couple here running off the page? Kind of hard because my brush is coming up and off, but that's okay. Turn it. There we go. Hopefully I'm not making you dizzy. And we could do maybe a light blue over here. So let's grab some of that soft blue in our Mylang palette and add some over here. Point, press, and drag, just like that. Maybe one more here. Yeah, don't be afraid to, you know, glaze over what's there. I think that's really pretty. And I feel like we might need a blue one down here. So let's just kind of run one right off the page. Point press, point press, point press, point press, like that. So it really creates this beautiful interest. And then maybe a baby blue one there, using that light blue in our Mylang palette. Point press, like that. And I'll just kind of color in some right here, like that. Gosh, is that just so pretty to fill an entire page? I love filling an entire page. There we go. Maybe a pink or blue one up here. We're almost done. There we go. Something like that. And I think I'm about done. Look at how pretty. Now, you could go over this with some of these colors. And I think that would be really, really pretty, actually. And just glaze over a few, just to create a little bit of interest. You could use any of these colors, really. They're all quite beautiful. And it would just make a few of these kind of pop out. Look at that. Isn't that pretty? I love adding the MABs with a color that's already on the paper. I think it's so pretty. There we go. Now we might need to put one down here just because we've got it added in up there. So how about this one here? There we go. Just point and drag, point and drag, point and drag. And then what I'll do is I'll go into the middle, point and pull. So I am pulling in a clockwise position, clockwise direction. Now what I'll do, and this is, you know, I love a brush that I can get a thin, small line, and I can also get that thick, broad line. That's so perfect for me. And then I think in the middle, I can't decide if I want to go black or blue. Let's go with a dark, maybe like a Payne's gray. Let's just see what that looks like. I think previously when I did these, now I am making sure I'm turning my brush this way, not going in straight on, because that tiny little tip is just everything, and you don't want to destroy that. So you could go in with either black or yellow. The black is definitely going to be dramatic. And I'm just barely tapping in to create some little dots here and there. You don't even have to do every single one. Kind of do it to lead the eye around. So I'm leading the eye with these little black dots, which is always a fun kind of composition trick. You could do this with your pen too. And I think I'm just gonna leave it at that. Oop, see, I say that and then here I go. And there you go. So I hope you'll give this a try. I will, sorry for that camera shake. I will, this is of course the Craftamo Bloom set, which I've been sharing with you a lot, but I will have 2 different boxes with the Bloom brush, mine. So it's gonna be a little bit different than this, and it'll have that bright pink handle. All right, everybody, I hope you give this a try. So much fun. This MABs that I used on there is the Planet series. I'll link that below. And take advantage. She gave you guys a 10% off. So that's kind of fun too. And then I use my Lang paints, 140 pound cold pressed paper. And I'll link everything below for you. And just remember, if you're questioning, am I an artist? You are an artist, and I'm here to remind you of that. If you're here with me and joining me and you're creating, you're an artist. And I hope you say that loud. I hope you tell people I'm an artist and really own it and feel it and have fun with it. And I will see you soon. Make sure to share your pictures, your paintings, your artwork over on Patreon. And I'm so glad, so grateful to have you here. You bring me so much fun and joy. And I'll see you soon. Happy painting.